Hey everyone, this is The Common Thread, the official podcast of the Howard Thurman Center. It is Friday, April 6th. I'm Amanda Dowd.
I'm Tarif Ahmed.
And I'm Greg.
And we have a very special guest on today. We have Liz Douglas from Student Health Services. Hi Liz, how are you doing?
Hi, good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
So we are going to be talking about something that's really relevant and really interesting to our little college culture here. We're going to be talking about alcohol culture today. So first, to start, we do have Liz on. Liz, can you tell us a little bit about your job at Student Health Services, just so the listeners are aware of what you do?
Sure. I'm manager of Wellness and Prevention Services, and that covers all the alcohol and other drug programs and services we offer through Student Health. Mm-hmm. So that could be counseling, that could be groups, that could be an alcohol education class, and we do consultation for anyone on campus who's concerned about themselves or about another student who may have a substance use problem or they're concerned about any related behaviors. So in some, we're a great contact at Student Health. We can be reached through the behavioral medicine number at 33569 if anyone's interested in assistance or consultation. And it's a free and confidential service.
Great. Well, that's good to hear. I think that's a really useful resource for everybody on campus. So to start, just a standard disclaimer, the three of us co-hosts, Greg, Tarif, and myself, are all under 21. So keep in mind that is the perspective you're getting, and you're also getting Liz's perspective. So just to start, I'm curious, what do you guys think of underage drinking? I want to know.
A fact.
Go ahead.
A fact?
It's a fact.
Elaborate.
It happens. I mean, the drinking law wasn't 21 forever. It changed a few decades ago. So people have been drinking probably since they were 15, 16 years old, and it's just a fact of our lives. It's how we manage that fact that can either lead to problems or not problems. Like, most people who drink underage don't have problems. The ones that do are doing it because they haven't been socialized to drink properly. And I think that's because they have to wait so long.
I think it's a very valid point because I'm from South Carolina, and in that state, it's legal to drink underage if your parents give it to you and you're in your own home. So it's not illegal at all.
I feel like it's like that in a couple of states.
It probably is. I just know for a fact about South Carolina. But I actually, when I went home recently, I said to my mom, because I did not drink at all in high school, and my parents really aren't that comfortable with it, but I did say to her, I think you should let Nick, he's my 15-year-old brother, I think you should let him have a drink at home. I said, instead of not letting him do it at all and wait till he gets to college and then be exposed to it, if you can teach him about it now, that would be a really great thing. And I think the same thing of my other brother, who is still a little too young for that. But I think that parents teaching you how to handle it responsibly is really crucial.
That's important. Now, did we call the term alcohol culture? Mm-hmm. Is there a reason the word culture is used?
Yes, actually, this is something I talk about a lot with people. I say alcohol and drinking culture because it really is the culture of how you understand and pursue your drinking habits. Mm-hmm. In America, and especially college students in America, we have this binge drinking epidemic. People don't necessarily understand how to drink in a safe way because they're taught, like, you have to get really drunk, you have to, like, do a keg stand or take a million shots because you're turning 21. If you look at Europe, they do have drinking problems, like they have alcoholism in Russia or whatever, but they're socialized at a younger age to know how to enjoy a drink. Like, they will sit down and have a beer and have a conversation, and that's the end of it. Whereas you see a lot of kids here who drink just to get drunk. Right? People drink alcohol because it's a social lubricant. Mm-hmm. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be drunk. You can be a little tipsy and still enjoy your drink. So that's what I mean by drinking culture. How people choose to drink, what type of drinks they decide they're going to make that day. Are they going to have, a nice beer? Are they going to have PBR or Natty Light?
More of uniquely American college thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I guess I have a couple of questions. Do you think that the culture of drinking at BU is different from other colleges? That's one of my questions. And in general, when you think about college drinking, I really wanted to point out that it's really a small percentage of those people that are causing problems or kind of ruining it for everybody else. Mm-hmm. Most college students drink in moderation and drink in a responsible way.
What does it mean to ruin it for everybody?
So, you kind of get a bad rap or people come down hard on you with alcohol because there are people who do put themselves in dangerous situations or engage in illegal behavior or dangerous behavior to other people or putting their lives at risk. Mm-hmm. And so if everybody drank more moderately, it wouldn't be such a huge issue. But it's really a small, statistics show that it's really a small percentage. It's less than a third that are kind of ruining that. So, otherwise, it wouldn't be such a hot issue, right? If people weren't getting injured and having some negative fallouts from that.
Okay.
I don't know if exactly what the statistics are on how many people binge drink. I would imagine in college it's nearly 100% because everybody has that one of those nights. But, I don't think, at least from what I can tell, what you were saying, Sharif, binge drinking is really a thing in some other, especially European countries. I remember talking to a friend of mine who was Italian once, and the idea of somebody having to go to the hospital because they drank so much, she was shocked. And this is someone who has been drinking socially since she was probably 12 or 13 years old, as all of her friends. It's very much a cultural thing, I think.
And like I said, I think the reason we have this is because you have to wait so long. You have to wait until you're 21. On top of that, Americans, we like to do things big. So you combine those two and you get this repression. Okay, I'm in college now. I can finally have access to liquor. I'm going to drink as much of it as I possibly can and get really drunk. And it's perpetuated by all the movies you see and all these media that sort of glorifies that. You see all these social
American
culture
Pie.
heroes. Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't really contribute to a more sophisticated and controlled drinking environment. But Liz, you asked us a question about the culture here at BU versus other schools. I haven't been, all over the country to see, but I have noticed we have the binge drinking culture here. People have their Alston Ragers all the time. I have noticed the rise of a more sophisticated type of drinking culture. Just within my own circle of friends, there's people that are now looking up, okay, how to make a good drink. How do you make a drink where you only need one drink to be good for the entire night?
Now, is that an age thing, or is that
I don't know if it's an age thing. I think it's a combination of age, maturity, and what type of social interaction you're looking for. If you're going to these big parties, you're probably looking forward to a beer guzzling, shot taking, Jello shot adventure, versus if you're all sitting around and having a conversation about international politics, you're probably just sipping on a nice drink. And when I say one drink, I'm not meaning put 6 shots in it. I mean a drink that you can sip slowly and enjoy over the course of 1 to 2 hours.
Well, Liz, I'm curious because you are the only one sitting here who is no longer in college. You're an adult now, and you're also manager of health programs at SHS. What is your perspective on drinking now that you're older, you're out of that college atmosphere?
I think that everything in moderation is reasonable. I think that obviously people wouldn't drink if there weren't enjoyable factors for it. Obviously there is the legality factor. But I think that in general, if there are things you can do to reduce your risk of experiencing negative consequences, whether that be blacking out, injuring yourself, having to go to the hospital, putting someone else in danger, etc. Being that person that's found in the bathroom, it's an inconvenience for, roommates as well to take care of. Yeah. And so, I think that in moderation, obviously it's a legal substance and people can choose to drink if they want to. And, as far as the underage factor, the rules are what they are. So, I think that if you do choose to drink, it's all your choice. And as an 18-year-old in college, it's your choice of what you're going to do in your life as far as how much you're going to study, what you're going to drink, if you're going to drink, if you're not, etc. And so that there are things that we can do as student health and that you can do as peers for each other to help each other reduce your risk of harm.
So you said you were talking about alcohol education. Is that a class, or is that
It is a class.
Now,
There is a class.
What do you teach in that?
So we talk about blood alcohol levels. I find that the most common reason people go to the hospital is, particularly among freshmen, is that they don't know what is a standard drink and how much they're drinking. So they may pour an 18-ounce solo cup with 3/4 of the way of vodka and say that's one drink, like you had mentioned before, and that isn't one drink. And so I think that lack of knowledge and inattention to how much and how quickly one is drinking is really what trips people up.
Okay.
I think the majority of people don't have a substance use disorder, that they don't meet criteria for that. I think it's really just people not paying attention to how much and how quickly. And some of that is inexperience, and some of that is, kind of that excessive culture that, is present around a lot of other topics as well.
I think when you said the word experience, that's a huge deal because, and I hate to be saying this, I'm not giving medical advice, but sometimes having one bad experience is what you need to really figure out, like, okay, next time I'm drinking, I'm going to drink a glass of water in between every drink I have, and I'm going to, make sure I eat before I go out. Those things come with time and I guess just being socialized into the whole process.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I kind of feel like college students fall into 3 categories in terms of how they drink. You have the small percentage who regularly binge drink and put themselves and possibly others at harm. You have the vast majority that are social drinkers, and you have another very small percentage of people who don't drink at all.
It's actually a third. A third of people don't drink.
Really?
Wow.
I did not know that.
Yeah. From all the BU studies that we've done, from the polls, from the surveys that have been school-wide, it's a third. And that's the national average. It's not higher than other schools. That's what it is. It's 30-something%.
I'm very surprised to hear that.
Did your surveys ask why these students? No. Okay, that would be interesting to sort of
and
get
so it's
that.
Not to say that no one's ever tried to drink, but on a typical weekend, do they drink? Or, the different surveys have been worded differently. But, do they consider themselves a drinker? And there is, when you think about BU, they're not all at the places where the parties are. There are lots of other things to do in Boston, and so it's not like a priority for a lot of people.
Now, is it a third for all college students? Because I do vaguely remember at orientation them saying that a third of freshmen choose not to drink, but that's across the board.
Across the board, national statistics, undergrads.
Interesting.
Now, am I wrong to make the assumption that a lot of the people that come into your office seeking help for alcohol-related issues are younger students who are sort of getting a culture shock coming in?
I think that a lot of the students who are transported to the hospital are freshmen or freshmen and sophomores. It's rare to have an upperclassman. However, I think that has something to do with also where people are being identified. So if upperclassmen are living off campus, there isn't someone watching them to see how intoxicated they are, to make sure that they're safe when they get home. So I think that has to do with it. But also I think that it is upperclassmen who are coming in on their own. Identifying their concern around their use, and also graduate students. Those are a lot of the folks who are coming in who are self-identifying as like, hey, this looks out of control for me, I need some help.
Now, this might be a bad question, but is there a typical case for a student who comes in seeking help for alcohol? Like, are there characteristics that many students seem to share when they come in for that?
Voluntarily, or because they were transported to the hospital, or
both, either or.
Different. I think that a lot of the time, for people who actually meet criteria for substance use disorder, there's often a family history. So you are multiple times as likely to develop dependence in your lifetime on a substance. Doesn't have to be the same substance, but especially if your parent or grandparent has a substance use disorder. So that's really common, and there are different factors for that affect that. There's a genetic component. There's kind of the environmental factor. There's lots of different things, but you're really kind of at a disadvantage. In addition, and that really depends on your coping skills as an individual. So there are kind of multiple layers to that. And then for, again, I think it's the inattention to how much and how quickly people are drinking that brings people in for the majority of time for ending up in the hospital. And the blood alcohol levels are concerning. The majority of them are, above a blackout range. Blackouts typically occur at a 0.15 blood alcohol level. And when we get we do get some of the aggregate information on blood alcohol levels, and they are high. This is the first year we started collecting, and there are really some concerning numbers. We've had like 0.4. 0.4 is typically death. 0.31% of the population dies. I mean, these are severely along. It's not just kids who are identified stumbling in the hallway, and that's the majority. So those are concerning. But given the largeness, how large our school is, it's not the majority of people who are getting transported, which is...
So what do you tell these people who come in? Do you tell them, do you simply preach the fact of moderation, or do you...
It's really directed by the student. So, my job is to evaluate, any pattern that's going on for a student to help them see any things that they can be doing differently. And if they're interested in making changes, then we can talk about how to do that. And if they say, you know what, Liz, I'm all set, then that's okay too. We just kind of try to work out, and provide them with information and strategies to either, if their goal is to not be in the situation again, which usually it is, I don't want to end up back in your office, we can talk about how to do that. And usually people are pretty insightful and are, like you said, are like, oh my God, this was the worst experience, and they don't want to be in that situation again. So.
And I'm sure you have to make a really comfortable space, especially for a lot of underage kids, because
Oh yeah.
they're doing something that they're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So they have to be comfortable to talk about their behaviors. So.
Yeah, so it's just like our counseling services in behavioral medicine. It's confidential. We don't share the record without anyone's permission to do so, and so it's held in confidence so that people do have that space. Otherwise, it wouldn't be effective, or it would be a waste of everyone's time. So.
Percentage-wise, roughly how many college students would you say do struggle with this?
Struggle with which?
With, alcohol, who need to seek help, who have repeated incidents?
I think the national statistics, just in general, not among college students, is 5 to 7% meet criteria for a substance use disorder. And I would say it's a little tricky in college population because behavior that is in college doesn't necessarily dictate what their behavior is going to be lifelong. But so I would say the percentage that actually meet the DSM criteria would be a little bit higher in college. But I would say that, it's probably, it's hard for me to say. But, I would say that 5 to 7% of a college population, just like in the general population, is what I would kind of identify. The tricky thing is that this is usually the start of the behavior, or maybe it started in high school, whereas it's really harder for people to see themselves as having a problem or a chronic pattern when it's it's normalized to them by peer behavior, and also they're not at that extreme end where they're now 40 years old and they're engaging in the same behavior and everybody else around them is not.
Mm-hmm. Now, just switching gears a little bit, I think I want to talk about the fun of drinking versus the danger of drinking. And I think we should talk about a couple of dangers really quick just to, get it out of the way. I think we do need to touch on sexual assault and drinking. And, let me say that we're not trying to turn this into a discussion of rape or sexual assault, especially in light of the rape culture conversations that have been going on. That is definitely a conversation for another day. But the statistics for sexual assaults where they involve alcohol, I got a statistic off of the RAIN website that said in 30% of sexual assaults, the perpetrator was intoxicated. Liz, when you looked at that statistic, you seemed surprised that it was so low. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think for college, and I apologize, I don't have the correct statistic with me, but I can send that to you, is that among college sexual assaults, that it's a high percentage where alcohol's involved. Now, not necessarily just with the perpetrator, but one of the parties has alcohol involved, and I believe that the number is in the 90s percentile. And alcohol is the number one predatory drug. And, statistically, it is a perpetrator who repeatedly is a perpetrator. So it's not necessarily that there's a large majority of perpetrators. I guess I'm not that surprised that there may not be alcohol on board for them. But I think in college sexual assaults, there often is alcohol on board, and in general, because it is a lubricant for somebody. It is a tool to endanger somebody. So it can be used in a very negative way, and that's one of the huge dangers.
Now, amongst the other dangers, you see a lot of people combining different drugs, especially in the college culture. So when alcohol gets combined with marijuana or with other, different types of drugs, that potentially spirals into a very dangerous situation. Do you have any advice or just things that you would advise college students to watch out for that's specific to our scenario?
Yeah, I think we saw a big increase in situations when Four Loko. What do you guys think of?
They're talking all about this.
Yeah. So because caffeine greatly masks the effects of alcohol, you feel less intoxicated. So during that time that you feel less intoxicated, even though your blood alcohol level is quite high, you don't feel the effects immediately. They're delayed, so people imbibe more and then bring their blood alcohol level up even higher. So that's the danger with things like energy drinks and large caffeine intake and alcohol. And I would say that's the number one probably mixed combination that I see on a college campus. Obviously, marijuana is another, and what part of the danger is that you're mixing two depressants together, and marijuana can suppress your vomit reflex. So that can be dangerous if your body's trying to purge itself because you drink
Is
too
marijuana
much.
a depressant?
It would be considered a psychoactive depressant.
Okay.
That's how I think of it, and it does depress systems in your body.
Okay.
So
I think it kind of goes without saying that, you really do have to be safe when it comes to drinking. Obviously, everybody, just about everybody, is going to go out and drink with your friends, and, we're not passing judgment on that at all, but I think that making good choices about where you are, who you're with, and how much you're drinking is really crucial to protecting yourself and to protecting others.
Especially with Marathon Monday coming up.
Yes, it is
People
coming
start drinking
up.
in the morning.
And you know what? We're going to talk about the more lighthearted side of things. So I think Marathon Mondays are guarded with, kind of a nostalgic warmth on campus. People are like, oh, Marathon Monday. It's the only day of the year it's acceptable to be drunk at 10 a.m. You have to...
Or St. Patrick's.
I was going to
There's
say.
that. There is that. You know what? There is
Second day
that,
of the
too.
year.
I'm sorry. It's the second day of the year.
Boston's just... We have a drinking...
Full of fun.
Yeah, we just
We
love to
are a
drink in
good
Boston.
Irish city. What can I say? We like our drinks. And I can say
Indeed.
that because I'm Irish. So, I'm just curious. What are some of the best and worst, maybe funniest drinking stories that you guys have? It could be friends. You can change their names to protect the not so innocent.
Okay, I have to pick and choose now, but there was one time I was in West Campus, and I was with two really good friends of mine. And it was in the middle of the winter, too, so it was cold, and we're walking home, and we saw a rabbit. It was a white rabbit, and I just thought it would be the greatest idea to chase said white rabbit. And so clearly I fell on my ass and just got really owned trying to chase this rabbit.
The rabbit got away. It was probably Bugs
Of course it
Bunny
got away.
laughing at you.
So that's one of my favorite drunk
Okay.
stories.
I have an interesting one. We were completely sober, me and the person I was with, but we were in an elevator, and I find that most people are pretty happy drunks. That's what I think. But every now and then you get the angry drunk, and
Oh.
I never know how to deal with that person. And I'll say that I've been lucky that I haven't really had to deal with that very often. But anyway, I was in the elevator with someone, and this third person came in drunk off his ass. And the person that I was with is black, and the guy goes, "Oh yeah, I don't screw black guys," or something like that, like out of nowhere. It was
Wow.
and I just looked at the person. I was like, "All right then."
Well,
Like, how do you even? And this guy was like genuinely angry. Like, he looked like he was ready to punch somebody. So we just kind of stayed quiet and let him go his own way. But that was kind of one of the most random incidents I've been in.
mine, we were at a Lil Wayne concert, and we were fine, but it's a Lil Wayne concert, so everybody around us is just out of their mind. And we saw this girl just sitting in the middle of a lawn, just crying. She looked like she was lost. She looked like a lost 12-year-old girl, but she was like probably 20-something years old. And we were just, we didn't really help her because if she had friends around her, it just seemed like it was the most random situation. It was supposed to be a fun event, but she looked so depressed. It was hilarious.
Oh.
Alcohol can definitely, it makes you more emotional, especially if there's something going on in your life that you're not really
It does.
addressing.
That's because it's a depressant, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so weird. Most people become really happy, I've noticed, until they get to a certain point and they start throwing up. But there are some that get really emotional and they want to just vent everything. You don't
And so
want
when
to be around them.
personalities change, that can be a sign of a problem as well.
Okay.
And because alcohol does kind of provide for mood lability, that's a sign. Like if you're going upset into the night and you have that predisposition to be that crier or that angry person, not a good idea to drink.
Right. Yeah, I always also really hated it when you go to a concert and your favorite musician has to drink a little bit to get okay to be on stage, but then they drink too much and they mess up the lyrics. Get on your game,
That's
man.
not good.
Yeah, Chris Cornell, great singer, beautiful voice, forgets lyrics
Sure.
all the time and
Really?
slurs his words on stage. Come on, man.
I was at you're going to make fun of me for this, and I don't really care. I was at a Nickelback concert. Yes, I like Nickelback. Everybody listening to this probably is going to make fun of me now, but I don't care, because I do like them. Anyway, point is, I was at this Nickelback concert, and the lead singer, Chad Kroeger, he gets on stage, and the way it was set up at the concert venue was you had the main seats in the center, and then there was the lawn around it, and the lawn seats are much cheaper, but, it's just the reputation is they're doing all kinds of drugs out on that lawn. They're
Lawn is
drinking.
where-
And he got on stage and he's like, so you guys feeling kind of relaxed? He's like, I know the people on the lawn are. The stuff they took a half hour ago is starting to kick in. Meanwhile, this guy admits he smokes pot all the time. I didn't see him drink during the concert, though.
Okay, it's probably a backstage ritual.
Maybe.
So do you think that influences this alcohol culture we're talking about? Because all the people that we idolize. They're all drunk all the time when we see them.
Drunk, and then, like I said, it's just glorification of the culture that like perpetuates younger kids doing it. I don't have numbers, but I've heard statistics that kids are now drinking at a way younger age than they were before, which is kind of frightening.
I mean, it's
Really?
in the music. I remember I was listening to another radio show actually, and the guy was talking about like, unfortunately his like nephew had passed because a drunk driver hit him, and he was like addressing a lot of rappers because they make references to drunk driving in their music a lot, which is like it seems like just so out of control. Like, why would a rapper go ahead and just preach that, like, driving drunk, I'm doing my thing, or like Kanye says in that one song, I was drinking earlier, now I'm driving. Do you think that really influences high school kids to go ahead and do that because they think it's okay because their favorite celebrities are doing it and are prospering? I mean,
It sound lyrics a lot.
Yeah.
Are we that
People are
impressionable?
bombarded with images in media, with songs, with so many different things, with movies.
Are kids drinking younger statistically? Like, can you talk about that a little bit?
That is true that they're starting at a younger age, and I think that's part of the concern with, one is that your brain actually develops until age 22, between 22, some people say 25, and part of what that is the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is kind of remodels, restructures itself from age 10 to 22, and so during your adolescent years, that's a really important time, and if you're putting substances into it on a regular basis, you're going to fire in a different way and not be able to remodel as well. And so the frontal lobe is in charge of judgment, memory, etc., things like that. And so if you're drinking at a younger age, you're also affecting potentially your brain structure.
So that's like the scientific reason behind the reason of drinking age 21. Because a lot of people are like, lower it down, it'll save everybody.
But I think the
there's
concern
reasons.
is that people are already starting younger, just like they're starting younger doing a lot of things.
Right.
That, if you lower the drinking age, they're going to be starting, I think that is one of the main concerns, that you'd be starting even younger and people are already being affected developmentally.
Well, we are about to reach the end of our time here. Just wanted to finish it off with a little friendly warning. According to the Center for Disease Control, binge drinking is defined as drinking enough to raise a person's blood alcohol content, BAC, to 0.08. Roughly, that translates to 5 drinks for men and 4 drinks for women in about 2 hours. Liz, does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you have a link or resources for kids on campus if they want to get some more concrete numbers, especially as Marathon Monday comes up?
Yeah, absolutely. If they go to our wellness blog or our student health website at bu.edu/shs/wellness, there's information on there all about blood alcohol level. There's also a link to a blood alcohol calculator. Obviously, it's based on weight and and sex and a few other factors, so that isn't correct for everybody, but that's about right.
All right. Well, since we're wrapping up, is there anything else you want to add? Any final words of wisdom?
No, I just think that everybody has their own decisions to make, and hopefully, people make the decisions that are right for them, and you just be educated about the decisions that you're making. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk about the topic, and I always like to hear from students about like what their perception is at BU. So I hope we get an opportunity to talk about it again.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I will, put it out there. Friends, neighbors, please just be safe. Go out and have fun, but make good decisions. That's the motherly side of me, I guess, as a big sister. I don't know. But thank you so much for joining us, Leslie. Really appreciate having you on. To our listeners, please join us next week. We're going to be talking about reproductive rights, all the stuff going on with the Republican primaries.
Big Planned Parenthood protest on my way from Packard's Corner this morning.
It's going to be a good
always.
Conversation. We better see you guys back here. All right? So anyway, thank you for joining us. Liz, thank you again.
Thank you.
This is The Common Thread, the official podcast of the Howard Thurman Center. I'm Amanda Dowd.
I'm Tarif Ahmed.
And I'm Greg Wilson.
And we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.